The year was 1987. The Cold War was cooling down, shoulder pads were heating up, and MTV ruled the teenage universe. And then, through the flicker of static and neon lights, came a voice. Not a voice manufactured in a studio, not a sound engineered by a label boardroom, but the raw, unmistakable voice of a 16-year-old girl from Long Island singing about dreams, heartbreak, and hope, in words she had written herself. Her name was Debbie Gibson, and overnight she shattered every rule the music industry had carefully constructed. No ghostwriters, no puppet masters, just a young girl and her keyboard climbing the charts with a song she penned in her bedroom. While her peers were focused on prom dates and homework, Debbie was busy making music history. But what the cameras didn't catch, what the flashing lights couldn't show, was the pressure building behind the scenes, the price of perfection, the exhaustion that came with carrying a pop empire on teenage shoulders, and the quiet battle she would one day fight alone with an illness that nearly silenced her forever. This isn't just a story about a teen pop star, it's about resilience, about creative power in a world that prefers control, about a girl who built her dream from scratch and then fought like hell to keep it alive. If you love uncovering the real stories behind the voices that shaped music history, hit that subscribe button and join us here on Retro Waves, where legends live on. Deborah Ann Gibson was born on August 31st, 1970, in Merrick, Long Island, a place where suburban comfort met big dreams. From the moment she could talk, she was singing. From the moment she could reach a piano, she was writing. By the time most kids were learning to drive, Debbie was already composing entire songs, not nursery rhymes, but sophisticated melodies with depth and soul. Her mother, Diane, recognized something rare and stepped into the role of manager, guiding her daughter through recording sessions, demos, and piano lessons, all while keeping her grounded. Her inspiration? Not just Madonna or Cyndi Lauper, but classical composers and Broadway greats. While her friends were playing video games, Debbie was locking herself in her bedroom studio, pouring her heart into cassette tapes and keyboards. It wasn't just ambition, it was obsession, in the best way possible. Debbie's big break came not through some flashy audition, but through grit. She began recording demos at 12, often sleeping with a tape recorder under her pillow, dreaming up hooks in her sleep. Her persistence caught the attention of Doug Breitbart at Atlantic Records, and by age 16, she had signed a deal. But there was a catch. The industry didn't quite know what to do with a teenage girl who refused to be shaped. They expected another face for MTV. Instead, they got a producer, an arranger, a songwriter, and a performer, all in one. Her debut single, Only in My Dreams, hit the airwaves and immediately turned heads. Radio DJs couldn't believe this slick, infectious pop track came from a teenager, especially one who had written and recorded it herself. But behind the glitter was exhaustion. Debbie was still in high school, balancing calculus homework with television interviews and tour rehearsals. Classmates treated her differently. Critics whispered that she was too sweet, too clean, too nice girl next door to last. She was already being doubted, already being underestimated, and she was just getting started. As Debbie's star skyrocketed, so did the demands on her young shoulders. Her second album, Electric Youth, became a cultural phenomenon, thanks to the anthemic title track and Lost in Your Eyes, a ballad that tore through the charts. But fame wasn't just bright lights. It was tabloid scrutiny, grueling tours, and whispers of rivalry. Her name was constantly linked with another teen star of the era, Tiffany. The media painted them as pop rivals in a catfight that neither girl actually signed up for. While some fans bought into the drama, insiders knew it was more about the industry's need to pit women against each other, especially when both were thriving. And behind the headlines, the pressure quietly built. Everything was moving too fast. One moment, she was a girl scribbling lyrics on a notepad between piano lessons. The next, she was the face of teen pop, plastered on bedroom walls across America. Yet even as the radio celebrated her, critics whispered, "She's too wholesome. She won't last past her next album. She's not edgy enough." And while the world waited for her to crash, Debbie kept writing, kept recording, kept trying to evolve in an industry that only loved her teenage version. Then came the backlash. By the early 90s, grunge had taken over. The mainstream dismissed 80s pop as artificial. Debbie was seen as yesterday's news, despite her songwriting chops and vocal range. There were whispers of label tension and of Debbie wanting to shed the bubblegum image, but being told to stay in her lane. She wanted to grow, but the industry wasn't ready. By the time 1989 rolled around, Debbie Gibson wasn't just a teen pop star, she was a force. Her sophomore album, Electric Youth, was more than just a record. It was a statement. It was an anthem of confidence, of ownership, of what it meant to grow up, on your terms. And behind that empowering beat was Debbie herself, writing, producing, arranging. She didn't need a team of men in suits to tell her how to sound. She knew. Then came Lost in Your Eyes, a haunting ballad that stopped time the moment it hit the radio. No synthesizers, no flashy gimmicks, just a piano and her voice, pure and open and aching. This wasn't just her biggest hit. It was the moment she proved she wasn't a novelty. She was an artist. The song shot to #1 and stayed there. Girls everywhere sang it into hairbrushes, boys slow danced to it in gymnasiums, parents played it in the car and got quiet when it came on. And Debbie? She became the youngest person in history to write, produce, and perform a #1 single, entirely on her own. No co-writers, no shortcuts, just her. While others were told what to sing, Debbie Gibson was already building her catalog, writing from emotion, not formula. She didn't just ride the wave of pop fame, she shaped it. At the height of her fame, Debbie wasn't just topping charts, she was redefining what a teenage artist could be. She sold out arena tours, appeared on magazine covers, and inspired a generation of girls to dream differently. But perhaps her biggest contribution wasn't just the music, it was what she represented. A young woman who never let her age define her ability. A performer who proved that writing, producing, and singing could come from the same heart. She became a quiet trailblazer, one who later inspired artists like Avril Lavigne, Britney Spears, and Taylor Swift, young women who demanded to be heard on their own terms. Debbie didn't scream for attention. She earned it. In the 2010s, Debbie seemed to disappear from the spotlight once again. No big announcements, no scandals, just silence. Fans wondered, had she retired? Given up? The truth was far more heartbreaking and far more powerful. Behind closed doors, Debbie Gibson was fighting a battle that had no choreography, no makeup, no encore. Lyme disease, an invisible illness that slowly unraveled her body. At times, she could barely move. Her memory faltered, her energy vanished. She would sing on stage and collapse backstage. She smiled for cameras while privately breaking down. And for years, no one really knew. She didn't ask for sympathy. She didn't want the spotlight to pity her. She just wanted to heal and survive. In a world that often rewards spectacle over sincerity, Debbie chose silence over drama. But her resilience? It was louder than ever. In 2021, something remarkable happened. Debbie Gibson released an album called The Body Remembers, but this wasn't a comeback in the typical sense, because the truth is, Debbie never really left. She had simply been growing, evolving, healing in plain sight. And when the world heard her voice again, it wasn't a blast from the past. It was a woman reclaiming her sound, mature, honest, still electric. She didn't need gimmicks. She didn't need auto-tune. She didn't need to be anyone but herself. And in a beautiful full-circle moment, she teamed up with another former teen idol, Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block, for a duet that reminded fans, we all grow up. But the music we loved? It never really grows old. So maybe she was always more than a pop star. Maybe she was a blueprint for something bigger. A girl who dared to write her own story, and a woman who refused to let the industry write her ending. Debbie Gibson wasn't just electric youth, she is electric resilience. What's your favorite Debbie Gibson song or memory? Were you there in the 80s? Or did you discover her music later? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more stories that shine a light on the legends who defined a generation, subscribe to Retro Waves and hit the bell, because here we let the music speak.